Today at 6, Boris Johnson orders ministers to do everything in their power to free the two Britons sentenced to death by Russians in Ukraine. The two, seen on the left and the right here, along with the Moroccan national, are accused of committing crimes in a region controlled by Russia. Aidan Aslin and Sean Pinner were captured while fighting with the Ukrainian army. They have denied being mercenaries.
Been here 2 years now, so and love it. Made a life here, settled down, got a girlfriend in Mariupol, planning to get married maybe, and now I'm in the Marines in Ukraine.
The UK government says that their sentencing is a clear breach of the Geneva Conventions. Also today, the UK government's plans to send some migrants to Rwanda is unlawful, according to the United Nations. In Paris, an official report details a chain of failures by the authorities who handled the Champions League final last month. The latest on the devastating impact of the sharply rising cost of living and the choices that people are having to make.
It's either you do the washing and you run out of electric, or you don't do the electric and you do the washing by hand.
And more than 3 centuries after the Gloucester sank off the coast of Norfolk, with the loss of hundreds of lives, the wreck has now been found.
And coming up on the BBC News Channel, England's second Test match against New Zealand is underway, and it's been a frustrating day for the English bowlers at Trent Bridge.
This time all the way for 6.
Good evening. Boris Johnson has ordered ministers to do everything in their power to secure the release of 2 Britons who have been condemned to death by Russian authorities in eastern Ukraine. Aidan Aslin and Sean Pinner, seen here on the left and on the right, were captured while fighting with the Ukrainian army and put on trial as mercenaries, alongside the third man, he's the one in the centre, a Moroccan national, Saoudoum Brahim. The trial by a court in the so-called People's Republic of Donetsk has been dismissed as a sham by the UK government. The families of the British men insist that they are long-serving members of the Ukrainian military and that they're not mercenaries. Our diplomatic correspondent, James Landale, has the latest.
Aidan Aslin and Sean Pinner from Britain, either side of Saoudoum Brahim from Morocco. All members of Ukraine's armed forces, all convicted of being mercenaries, all facing the sentence of death. These pictures show the 2 Britons military unit on patrol in eastern Ukraine in 2020, 2 years before the latest Russian invasion. Both men talking openly about why they had chosen to live in Ukraine and serve in its army.
I've been here 2 years now, so and love it. Made a life here, settled down, got a girlfriend in Mariupol, planning to get married maybe, and now I'm in the Marines in Ukraine.
In a sense, like, it is like my war, because like, even though I'm not Ukrainian, like this is on my doorstep.
But this court in Russian-held East Ukraine has judged both men to be mercenaries, a court not recognised internationally. We're not showing footage of the trial inside, but Russian state media said the men had a month to appeal. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss discussed the 2 Britons on the phone this morning with her Ukrainian counterpart, Dmytro Kuleba. And in a tweet afterwards, she said the men were prisoners of war and the judgment against them was an egregious breach of the Geneva Conventions, the treaties that set out the rules of war. She's been ordered by Boris Johnson to do everything in her power to secure their release. But the Foreign Office has a dilemma. If it makes a noise and summons the Russian ambassador, it risks turning this into a bilateral row between London and Moscow, adding fuel to the false idea these 2 men are British mercenaries. So the emphasis instead is on helping Ukraine protect 2 of its own servicemen.
So there is nothing like this.
Ukraine's ambassador here told me he was confident the men would be released.
We consider these people as the part of regular Ukrainian armed forces and should be treated the same way as we are treating the Russian soldiers in our captivity. So we are preparing the exchanges, and at the end of the day they will be exchanged.
You're doing amazing. We do together.
For now, high-level contacts between Britain and Ukraine continue. The Defence Secretary visited Kiev this week to meet President Zelensky and discuss Ukraine's latest military needs. And international pressure is growing too. The United Nations in Geneva voiced its concerns about the sentences and the fairness of the hearings.
Such trials against prisoners of war amount to a war crime.
So for now, the fate of Aidan Aslin and Sean Pinner remains uncertain. Their families are said to be anxious and keen to ensure they have access to health services and legal advice. James Landell, BBC News.
With me is our correspondent Emma Vardy. And Emma, you have been following this story. You know the family of Aidan Aslin very well by now. How are they coping with all of this?
I mean, it's been a horrendous time for them, Hugh. Don't forget, before this supposed trial, Aidan Aslin was paraded on Russian television, looking bruised, in handcuffs, being interrogated for Russian audiences to see. You know, it was bizarre and disturbing viewing. And of course, many people here agree that is in a breach of the Geneva Convention. So extremely difficult for families to watch. Now, Aidan has been allowed some phone calls home to his mother since he's been held captive. In fact, those holding him have contacted his mother themselves, and he's been allowed some brief conversations. But everyone who knows Aidan really certainly doesn't believe that he's being able to speak freely. The families continue to hope there can be some negotiated prisoner exchange. The Foreign Office is supporting the families, but of course the Foreign Office is quite limited in what it can do in these circumstances. Aidan and Sean had very much made Ukraine their second home before the Russian invasion. Aidan's family, in fact, had been to visit him in Ukraine shortly before the invasion. But it is, of course, a very different place now. They were very proud of him for having passed out as a Marine. But for Sean and Aidan now, it may be a very long road ahead.
Emma, many thanks once again. Emma Vardy, there, our correspondent, who's been following the story. A report from the French government has blamed a chain of failures for last month's chaotic scenes at the Champions League final in Paris. It said the events at the Stade de France, which included police firing tear gas at some Liverpool fans, had damaged the country's image and raised new questions about its ability to host major sporting events. Our Paris correspondent Lucy Williamson has more details.
10 days on from the chaos at the Champions League final, the first assessment of the French government on events at the Stade de France. It says police asked that signs directing people to an alternative entrance to the stadium be taken down days before the match, and that it would have been desirable to reinstall the signs once a train strike was announced. It also says an unprecedented influx of people without valid tickets rapidly overwhelmed security controls, and that this was the key problem on the night. The report makes 5 recommendations, including a requirement that fans use electronic tickets in future to reduce the risk of fraud.
The report broadly sticks to the government's line that the problems here began with large numbers of fake tickets among Liverpool fans. What it doesn't address are claims that some valid electronic tickets also didn't work because of problems with internet access around the stadium.
The Paris police chief is facing questions from several different inquiries. In the French Parliament yesterday, he defended police actions on the night.
The use of tear gas worked. I'm well aware that by doing this, people of good faith were gassed. There were people who were caught up in this crowd and sometimes even families. On behalf of the police headquarters, I'm very sorry about that. But I'll say it again. Unfortunately, there was no other way.
Il n'y avait malheureusement pas d'autre moyen.
Honestly, I've never seen anything like it. It was so bizarre.
Tonight, Liverpool fans reacted to the French explanations.
Normally, what happens is you're going to get some people with fake teeth. That's normal, but it's not an excuse to then delay the whole thing and then tear gas everyone. And it wasn't just, I'll just say, it wasn't just small amounts of tear gas. It was relentless. Like you would be running and then you'd run into more tear gas. And this went on for ages. By the time people got into the stadium, like everyone had sore throats.
The chaos outside the Stade de France was filmed by fans on mobile phones, but footage from surveillance cameras inside the stadium was found to have been automatically deleted a week after the final, in the absence of any order to preserve it. The search for a clear picture of events is only leading to more questions. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Paris.
More than half of all households in Britain have reduced their spending on gas and electricity because of concerns over the sharply rising cost of living. New figures released by the Office for National Statistics show that 77% of adults are worried or very worried about rising costs, with almost half the respondents saying that they had reduced the number of items in their food shopping. Government figures also show that 22% of pupils in England now qualify for free school meals, and the cost of filling an average family car with petrol has hit £100 for the first time. Our social affairs correspondent Michael Buchanan reports on the impact of rising prices in Slade Green in South London.
Once we paid out all our bills, there's nothing left. Nothing.
I've had a stroke of COVID-19, but I was fit, I was active, working, 40 grand a year, gone.
Don't do mashed potatoes, it takes too long for the gas. I've lost 2 stone because I literally just walk everywhere because I can't afford the fuel.
Running the Slade Green Food Bank can feel never-ending.
Simon?
Hundreds of people are fed from this small hall in southeast London each week. Families that once just about managed are now barely surviving.
My energy prices have gone up from £90 a month to £300 a month. I've got a car, but the MOT runs out next week, so I can't afford to put it through another MOT, so I'm going to have to scrap my car.
Michelle and her husband were laid off when the company they worked for went under during the pandemic.
I'm actually registered disabled, so when you do apply for a job, no one wants to hire me because there's so many able-bodied people out there. Heating's off. We all have a rota of when we're allowed to have a shower, so every other day we have a shower.
Unfortunately, we didn't have any butter left, I'm afraid, sorry.
But just as the need is increasing, so donations are falling.
I've got no milk and I've got no chocolate solution.
Over several days, we regularly saw the food bank run out of various basic supplies.
Everything's going up in the shops, so not only are we seeing the knock-on effect of people not being able to afford to donate, but we're also not being able to go out and buy it ourselves because of the prices.
Slade Green is an area of relatively high unemployment and low wages. The lack of money creates stress. Domestic violence is a significant issue and mental health problems are rocketing. This small group meet up weekly for a walk and attempt to tackle isolation.
All my bills, gas and electric's gone up.
Sue Bailey, who suffers from anxiety, told me about the mental impact of rising costs.
Yeah, you do struggle, and that doesn't help your mental health. I mean, you try and brush it off when you're out and about with people, but then you go back indoors and you're sitting there, and that's when you start to think about it. And things like this, I think, do help.
Stretched finances create other health problems too. Eating cheap but often unhealthy foods is increasing obesity levels, while some people can't afford even basic medicines.
You're going to get more people coming in for paracetamol and that because they get free prescriptions when they can't afford a box of paracetamol. Not that we can prescribe that because obviously there's certain things that they can buy over the counter, but it's really, really hard for people to actually have that disposable income. OK, well, that's brilliant, thanks.
Ministers say they're protecting 8 million vulnerable families, giving them at least £1,200 this year in direct payments. But until that help feels real, many families will continue to struggle.
I haven't done washing for about a week and it's piling up because it's either you do the washing and you run out of electric, or you don't do the electric and you do the washing by hand. I'd never thought I'd be this desperate in 2022. It is horrendous.
More people need help getting food today than did so during the pandemic. A basic requirement to eat has become a daily, sometimes desperate challenge for many. Michael Buchanan, BBC News, South London.
Railway workers across the Midlands are to be balloted for strike action in a dispute over pay and jobs. The Transport Salaried Staffs Association said if its members on cross-country, East Midlands trains and West Midlands trains vote in favour of industrial action, it could take place ahead of the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham at the end of July. Travellers on the railways and London Underground are facing disruption later this month because of strikes by the RMT, ASLEF and Unite. Coronavirus cases have risen slightly in the UK for the first time in 2 months. That's according to estimates from the ONS. Roughly 1 in 65 people were estimated to have had the virus last week, up from around 1 in 70 the week before. Small rises are likely to be down to the two newer variants of Omicron. Devon and Cornwall police have released new information about the two disabled people who died after their motorboat capsized in Devon on Wednesday. A third person is seriously ill in hospital. A joint investigation with the Marine Accident Investigation Branch continues. Our correspondent Jenny Kuma is at Rodeford Lake near Oakhampton, where the accident happened. And as we've heard, Jenny, more details from the police today.
Yes, that's right. Just a short time ago, the police released more details about the two people that died here. They are a man in his 40s, a woman in her 60s. Formal identification has yet to be completed. Now, we don't know the full details of what yet happened. That has yet to be established, but we have been told that the boat capsized at around 1:30 on Wednesday. There were 6 people on board. 4 people were rescued from the water. 2 were unaccounted for. So a huge search was launched to find them. That search went on for more than 24 hours, and last night came the news that 2 disabled people, their bodies had been recovered. Now, the police and marine investigators have declined to comment on reports that the 2 people who died here were strapped in their wheelchairs when the boat capsized, but they have confirmed that no other boat was involved in the incident. And one woman who was rescued, she is in hospital. She's in her 50s in a critical condition, and there have been lots of tributes today. Local mayor, local sailing clubs saying that they are saddened by what happened and that they offer their condolences to all those affected.
Jenny, many thanks again. Jenny Kuma there with the latest in Oakhampton. Now, the time is, what is the time actually? 16 minutes past 6. Our main story this evening. Boris Johnson orders ministers to do everything in their power to free the 2 Britons sentenced to death by Russians in Ukraine. Coming up, the sprint star Dina Asher-Smith tells us of her plans to compete at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham.
Coming up in Sports Down, the BBC News Channel, tributes have been paid to the former Northern Ireland manager Billy Bingham, who's died at the age of 90. He oversaw the team's most successful period as their manager.
A 17th century ship called the Gloucester, which sank off the coast of Norfolk, has been found. And experts say it's the most important maritime discovery since the Mary Rose was raised some 40 years ago. The Gloucester ran aground off the coast of Great Yarmouth in 1682. The wreck's location was unknown until it was discovered by divers after a search lasting 4 years. Our East of England correspondent Joe Black is in Great Yarmouth with the story for us. Joe.
Yes, this wreck was found 15 years ago in 2007, but it's only now that we can reveal this story because it's taken quite a while to protect the site. And the 2 brothers that found the ship said that they were looking for the Gloucester and just about to start losing hope that they would ever find her. And then they did.
Beneath the surface, 30 miles off the Great Yarmouth coast, lies the Gloucester, a 17th century warship which came to a tragic end. It sank 340 years ago after hitting a sandbank. On board was James Stuart, Duke of York and future king. He survived, but it's estimated up to 250 people did not.
Since 1682, the vessel remained half buried on the seabed and its exact location was unknown. Now we know that it's been discovered. It's caused much excitement, with some saying that this is the most important maritime find since the Mary Rose.
Artefacts recovered from the ship include pipes with tobacco, spectacles with spare lenses and bottles, some with wine still inside. And there's also the ship's bell. It was Julian and Lincoln Barnwell's quest for a new challenge that led to this discovery. The printers from Norfolk are also professional divers. 4 years and 5,000 nautical miles later, they found the Gloucester.
I could see dark shadow on the seabed, so you know you're on some wreck, which is just really fantastic, obviously. And before you knew it, another 5 metres or so, I was kneeling on the seabed and surrounded by just fantastically huge cannon, and there was more than one. There was a group of them, and I just knelt there, took the moment in, for probably 5 minutes, and just unbelievable. Just one I'll never forget.
He popped up, and normally you take all your kit off because it's really heavy. He was so pumped with adrenaline, he just climbed up our stainless steel ladders, hand extended, and said, "We found her."
I fell over, didn't I?
You did, then he fell over.
Now there are plans to create a charitable trust headed by Lord Dannatt, which promises to tell the story and increase our understanding of the 17th century.
It is Norfolk's Mary Rose, if you like. There's so much history here which we can really get into over the years to come. And then we'll have a permanent exhibition here in Great Yarmouth. Great for Yarmouth, great for Norfolk, great for the nation.
Many will want to see the Gloucester raised, but whether that's even possible is still to be determined. For now, this fascinating time capsule remains on the seabed. Jo Black, BBC News, Great Yarmouth.
Some more of the day's main news, because the United Nations refugee officials have warned the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, they say on 2 occasions, that the plans to send asylum seekers to Rwanda are unlawful. 31 migrants are due to leave on a flight to Rwanda on Tuesday, but charities and campaigners have been to the High Court today to try to block the move. Home Office has claimed that the plans are in the public interest and should not be blocked by legal challenges. Our Home Editor Mark Easton has the latest.
Is it lawful to give people seeking asylum in the UK a one-way ticket to Rwanda, telling them to pursue refugee status thousands of miles south in East Africa? The first 31 migrants are due to make the journey next Tuesday, but this afternoon campaigners were seeking a court injunction to try and stop any removals. The judge at the High Court in London heard a claim from one asylum seeker, as well as refugee rights groups and a trades union, that the policy is unlawful and it's irrational to claim that Rwanda is a safe country for those fleeing war and persecution. The lawyer representing those trying to stop next week's flight, Raza Hussein, pointed out that the Home Office has repeatedly claimed that their Rwanda policy has been given the green light by the UNHCR, the UN agency responsible for the Refugee Convention. That's misleading and incorrect, he told the judge.
This agreement is comparable with all our domestic and international legal obligations.
Priti Patel has consistently claimed her deal with Rwanda is lawful under the Refugee Convention. But in court today, a barrister for the UN told the judge the UNHCR in no way endorses the UK-Rwanda arrangement. We've informed the defendant that it is unlawful. Not just once, but on numerous occasions it was claimed. After the deal was signed in Kigali in April, the UN had 2 meetings with Priti Patel and told her the arrangement broke international law. And then last month, the Home Secretary went to Geneva with Rwanda's foreign minister to meet the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees, hoping he'd back their deal. But he didn't. In fact, Filippo Grandi told the Home Secretary the proposal ran counter to the letter and spirit of the Refugee Convention and undermines established international refugee protection law. The Home Office legal team, however, noted that more than 10,000 asylum seekers have risked their lives crossing the Channel in small boats already this year, and argued there's a significant public interest in a policy that will deter people from making those journeys and undermine the activities of criminal people smugglers. Around 100 asylum seekers are now in immigration detention, threatened with deportation to Rwanda. In Brook House, near Gatwick, some have been on a hunger strike. One Syrian spoke to the BBC. A translator has voiced his words.
I came to the UK because it's the only place I have connections to. My brother, my uncle, and my aunt live here. If I end up in Rwanda, my future and the future of my 2 kids will be destroyed.
The Home Office had always expected a legal challenge, and government ministers will be hoping that a generic injunction has not been granted. However, there is another court application on Monday, and it remains to be seen whether other individual applications might still be thrown out.
Well, Mark is with me in the studio, just joining us with some breaking news, Mark.
Indeed, we've just heard from the court, Mr Justice Swift, not perhaps living up to his name. He's taken an hour and 25 minutes to get there, but he has said that the application has been refused. So the government wins. The flight will be able to take off on Tuesday with 31 asylum seekers. They will be sent to Rwanda. The government legal team and government ministers will be delighted by the news. They have always argued that there is a very important public interest here in preventing people making that perilous journey across the Channel in trying to undermine the business case of the people smugglers. But there are still some outstanding individual cases which may be heard and may mean that some of those who were due to go to Rwanda avoid that fate. But for the moment, it's been an important victory for the government.
Mark, many thanks for the latest on that. Mark Easton, our Home Editor. A 15-year-old boy has died and his mother has been seriously injured after a stabbing in Manchester. Police were called to a house last night and said they were searching for a man who's believed to be known to both victims. Our correspondent Danny Savage has the story.
In a cul-de-sac just outside Manchester city centre, police investigators this afternoon meticulously examined the scene where a 15-year-old boy was killed. He and his mother were stabbed in their home at about 9:30 last night. The teenager died in hospital. She is still being treated for serious injuries, but is aware that her son is dead.
They looked outside and seen like bodies.
Shocked neighbours watched the victims being treated. This man knew the 15-year-old.
I always see the boy, he was little, but then I seen him grow. And now to see that he's died, it's crazy, honestly.
Another neighbour grew up with him too.
We used to play football just here on this grass. He used to always ask for the pump for his tyres. I used to ask, so we just, it was good. So when I found out, it was crazy. I'm still trying to process it now.
But he was a friend, you knew him?
He was good. He was a good kid. Everyone around knew him. He always had his ball, just walking around in the street, dribbling and that. So
he was mad on football.
Yeah. He was a good lad. He was a good lad.
Police say the attacker was known to his victims. He's described as an Asian man in his mid-40s, of medium build and medium height. He was last seen in this road moments after the attack. Police say they are working at tremendous pace to try and find him. There is intensive police work ongoing after this shocking attack. Danny Savage, BBC News, Manchester.
Dina Asher-Smith, the fastest British woman of all time, saw her training disrupted by the pandemic and her hopes of an Olympic title at the Tokyo Games last summer ruined by injury. But she's confirmed that she will be competing at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, as she told our sports correspondent Laura Scott.
Dina Asher-Smith, the world champion from Doha.
Dina Asher-Smith is used to living life in the fast lane, but summers don't come much busier than hers, with the potential for 3 major championships. Winning won't be easy, as she found out last night in Rome, finishing 3rd behind 2 Jamaicans. She could face them at the World Championships next month and then in Birmingham at the Commonwealth Games, where she's just committed to compete.
It is a very uniquely British challenge for the summer, because obviously we are the only nation that falls into the categories of the Worlds and the Europeans and the Commonwealth Games. But I see it as a fantastic opportunity. You've got 3 back-to-back, you just got to go for it and enjoy it. And life is so short, and I just think that every race that we have and every race that you're healthy for, you should just grab and really go for it.
Has she been eliminated?
Hampered by a hamstring injury, there were tears in Tokyo, but Asher-Smith is desperate to bounce back.
Given those setbacks, what would constitute a successful summer for you? Just winning stuff, quite frankly. Yeah, I was quite unfortunate. I had an unfortunately timed injury last year, very frustrating, but I was thankful to be able to finish 2nd in the Diamond League last season and still, finish the season despite being injured as top in Europe. So that was really good for me, considering that I missed a big chunk in the middle. But I just want to come back and run some really fast times and be successful.
And she's going to take the gold medal!
The fastest British woman in history isn't about to slow down. Having reached the heights before, she's primed to peak again when it matters most.
Dina has done it!
Laura Scott, BBC News.
So after 37 years, nearly 9,000 episodes, the Australian soap Neighbours has filmed its last edition. And the show, which told the story of the residents of Ramsay Street, as we know, launched the careers of stars such as Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan, who both returned for the final episode. All of that prompting a wave of memories of one of the most popular soaps in television history.
Neighbours, everybody needs good neighbours. Oh.
Charlene!
You can find the perfect plan. Harold! Neighbours should be there for one
one another. Harold! That's when good neighbors become good friends.
Well, do you know what? I remember when it started, and Darren, that makes me feel a bit depressed, to be honest. I mean, I don't feel as if I've reached a certain age, but, you know, that's quite a milestone.
Yeah, it makes me feel old as well. I remember watching it at university, and that was many years ago. Always need good neighbours, of course. It's been a good day today, weather-wise, across England and Wales, with some good spells of sunshine. And through this weekend, there'll be some more sunshine around. But we do have some blustery showers, and they're mainly going to be across the northern half of the UK. And earlier today, we had some heavy showers, some thunderstorms flashing away there across Northern Ireland, some bands of heavy rain still moving across Scotland over the next few hours. Once those move away, there's still some more wet weather to come. And again, it's going to feed in from the northwest, some wetter weather in northwest Scotland. Some showers for Northern Ireland tonight, 1 or 2 moving over the Irish Sea into western parts of England and Wales. Some clearer skies, though, for England and Wales. And last night, temperatures 11 to 13 degrees. Tomorrow, we've still got some very high grass pollen levels across parts of England and Wales. But those levels are dropping a bit across northern England and North Wales, perhaps because there could be a bit more cloud around tomorrow and maybe 1 or 2 more showers too. The bulk of the showers tomorrow will be across Northern Ireland, with showers or longer spells of rain in Scotland, where it's going to be particularly windy with gales in the far north of the country. And tomorrow could be a little bit cooler in Scotland and Northern Ireland, but in the sunshine across eastern parts of England, where it may stay dry, temperatures are reaching 22 degrees. And it should really be dry at Trent Bridge on Saturday, and probably staying dry through the rest of the 5-day test match. We've still got a westerly breeze. Temperatures aren't going to change an awful lot, but I think the winds won't be as strong on Sunday. For all of us, the winds are easing down a bit because that big low pressure that's bringing the windy weather and most of the showers is tending to move away. So for Sunday, we've got lighter winds, we've got a scattering of lighter showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland and the far north of England, but further south across England and Wales, lots of sunshine around, and it should be warm in the sunshine once again. Hugh.
Darren, many thanks once again. And that's all from BBC News at 6. It's goodbye from all of us. And here on BBC One, we join our news teams where you are. Bye for now.